Well, the Nigeria Labour Congress has confirmed the suspension of its 7-day warning strike following the intervention of President Bola Tinubu and the Senate. The resolution followed the National Executive Council meeting of the Congress. The NLC held protests for 2 days across the Federation, including the Federal Capital Territory, an event that prompted an emergency meeting between the president and Labour leaders. Now, during the protests in Abuja on Wednesday, angry protesters pulled down the gates of the National Assembly in a bid to gain access to the premises so as to meet with the lawmakers. NLC President Joe Ajero, following the meeting with Tinubu, said the president had made some commitments. Yes, he said the president had made some commitments. Well, joining me virtually today to discuss this topic is Nick Agule, a social commentator and great emo, also a public affairs commentator. Right, and well, it feels good to have you, gentlemen. Good morning to you, Nick.
Good morning, sir. Good morning to our viewers.
All right, good to have you
Good
join
morning.
us this morning. Good morning to you, great as well.
Yeah, good morning, my brother. And good morning. Good to see Nick again.
All right, before we get into
Yes,
the pleasantries.
nice to see you too.
All right, then. Thank you very much. Now, Nick, let me come to you first. Now, what do you think the government's? What do you think about government's response to the protest?
Thank you very much. So we will have to, because we cannot stop ourselves comparing this government with the immediate government that they succeeded. And if we look at what would have been the response of the previous government and this government, we will say that this government's reaction to events is better than the previous government. I would have, if it was the previous government, there could probably be a statement from the presidency regarding the strike action or the protest by the labor unions. But here, the president himself intervened and sat with the union leaders at a meeting, and they did not disclose what was discussed, but the unions felt sufficiently satisfied to the extent that they decided to suspend their protest pending probably the delivery of whatever package that was promised them, promised the workers at that meeting with the president. So for the fact that the president is time to sit with the unions and intervene in a national crisis, I think I give a positive mark to the president on that one. What is left to be seen is whatever it was that was resolved at the meeting, if it is going to ameliorate the sufferings of the workers and stop the workers from trooping out again to the streets for further protests.
Well, great. Now, one would wonder. I mean, the talks about providing palliative for to cushion the effect of subsidy removal started immediately. This new government came into office on May 29. You know, that talk started. But can we say that government only responds to protests because it took NLC and backing starting out the protest before we had, government actually coming to sit down with them? Does government only respond to protests? Great.
Actually, first, it is not only that Nigerian government only responds to protests. Historically, they respond to a bit of force, and also they appear not to be, they are not pragmatic. It is not about this regime. You know, every society have its culture. The culture of governance in Nigeria is so poor that they only react to things. They are not proactive. So even when they make policy statements, some of those policy statements are not backed with any tangible delivery strategy. You know, this has been the culture over the years, and honestly, it is now continuing. I wanted to expect, for example, including the regime before the immediate past administration, before having place came, that you were planning to remove it. And there is no country in the world where there are no subsidies. Let nobody tell us lies. There are subsidies of all kinds in different parts of the world. It depends on what is critical to that society's
Go ahead, please.
To earn a living, to reflect the economy. There are countries that focus on subsidizing education. Some focus on subsidizing energy. Some focus on subsidizing food. China budget for both energy and agricultural subsidy is over $100 and something billion. America's subsidy for food, even where they don't need the grains, even where they have bilateral trade agreement with other countries that requires them to buy even the things they have from other countries, they subsidize the farmers to keep them, engaged, to keep reflecting the economy so that the GDP does not deplete, so that the productivity of the country does not go down. Now, a thinking government, not government here now, because we say government is a continuum. You had planned to remove subsidy by end of June. In fact, it was not, if they were silent about it, to the extent that whether it was Bola Ahmed Tinubu or any other person would have walked into this mine. It was not nationally discussed. There were no off-ramp arrangements. How do we exit this program? What are the indices and the factors that you need to put in place? So now we see that whether it was the government before or the one, even as this man came, he made that statement. If you read the paper, the document that emanated from the inauguration speech, none of this thing regarding subsidy was there. Obviously, it was said offhanded because it was discussed behind the scene, but it was not even documented on paper. So this secrecy of a thing becomes part of the problem. And even from the day when he said it, there were no quick actions to engage the public on this is the off-ramp routes. As we get into this, now it has got to the point where the labor union had to force them to begin to say something. Even the palliatives that they were mentioning, I can tell you there's a bit of confusion because these are not sustainable programs that would take Nigerians over 200 million Nigerians. Because when you want, even in the initial plan, talking about 12 million households, 8,000 naira, all those palliatives, some of them are inflation, they induce inflation, they induce improductivity, confusion. So there is no strategic idea or off-ramp routes for now. So even if people say, okay, you can remove subsidy, you need to take that money from somewhere and put it somewhere that is sustainable for economic development and progress of Nigerians. That is exactly what is missing. And I don't think they need this pressure to do anything, only that they need to have long-term thinking strategy. They need to be pragmatic. They need to be what? Proactive. These are the things missing in our philosophy and psychology of governance.
All right, let me come back to you now, Nick. Now, I don't know if you recall, well, this is your field. I know you're into the oil and gas industry. In 2021, NNPC commenced, rehabilitation of the Port Harcourt refinery, which was one of the things that the president told the NLC that by December, the president told NLC that by December, the Port Harcourt refinery will commence refining of petroleum products. All right. So on that ground, because that was one of the things that the NLC tabled before the president, that they want Nigeria to start refining its own oil, and the president gave them an assurance that by December 2023, the Port Harcourt refinery will swing into production. But do recall that in 2021, NNPC started rehabilitation of that refinery, where $1.5 billion was set aside for that. Now, the Timothy Silva, the former Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, said in September 2022 that by the end of the year 2022, production would have started, but it didn't start. Also, in March 2023, he also said that by before the end of the second quarter of 2023, production would start. Now, production starting at the Port Harcourt refinery has been, we've been given dates that, has been, pushed forward every time. Why is it so? And what has been hindering the commencement of production in that refinery? Let's not even talk about the one in Warri and, and the other one. This one that repair work has started in, why hasn't it gone into production? And do you think that, as the president has said, that in December production will start, do you see the feasibility of that?
Thank you very much for the question. I don't see the feasibility. Let Nigerians not have any hope that a refinery in Port Harcourt is going to start up in December. And, my co-panelist, Great Imo, spoke about the fact that this current government is touching on peripherals. Their solutions are cosmetics. They are not touching on the fundamentals. And I think that they are wasting time because they are already more than 60 days in office. That's a long, long time for them. If President Tinubu wanted to become president of Nigeria, I believe that he has always wanted to become president of Nigeria. He needed to have thought through and strategized about how he's going to run this country even before he started to contest. And after he contested elections, he was given his certificate of return in February. This is August, 6 months down the road. He's not coming across as someone who has come into the job prepared. Let me tell you one thing about the fundamentals here. The fundamentals here is simple. Government is not a good businessman. The government cannot do anything. We're not being abusive to government. We're talking about reality. For those who knew telephones in the days of night time, because I knew telephones, I'm old enough to know telephones in the days of night time. Getting a phone was like trying to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, telephone. These were the same excuses that NITE would give us. These were the same deadlines that NITE would give us, that they are delivering X number of phone lines to Nigeria and they won't deliver it. And it got to a point that a minister of communications in those days, David Mark, who became Senate president later, had the temerity to come on national TV and tell Nigerians that telephone is not for the poor. Enter the MTNs, enter the Airtels, the Etisalats and all of that, those whose business is to run telephones. And today, you can go and pick up a SIM card for free, A4C. It was the same SIM card that NITE was selling for 150,000, 200,000 with their Note 9 Note in those days. So there's no way government knows how to do business. Look, in the oil industry, where you have rightly said that I spent all my life in the oil industry, there are two halves to the oil industry, upstream and downstream. There are some people who build midstream, but midstream is actually part of downstream, because the upstream, where you actually look for the oil, then put in the equipment to produce the oil, is the more difficult aspect, is the one that requires more money, is the one that requires more expertise, more technology. But we have never woken up one day to hear that Nigeria produced 0 barrels of crude oil any day. From the 50s, when we started to produce crude oil till today, has anybody ever heard that Nigeria produced 0 barrels of crude oil? Answer is no. The only thing that happens is that the production falls. But it has never been zero. Why is that so? Because the international oil companies, which is the private sector, is the one that is running the upstream. Coming to downstream, where you have the refineries, in the hands of the NNPC, in the hands of Nigerians, we cannot run it. As we speak today, Nigeria is the only oil producing country that is refining 0 barrels of crude oil. 0 barrels. So what President Tinubu simply needs to do here is that, hey, just throw these 4 refineries up for privatization, either by outright sale of them or lease them out to global downstream operators. Let them come in and do to the refineries what the MTNs did to our telecoms. You know, that's just the solution. And I have not seen, you will hear that the president did not even mention anything about refineries in his speech. So you can see that the president is not touching on the fundamentals, and the earlier he does so, the better for his administration, the better for Nigerians.
All right, thank you very much, Nick, there for your analysis. But this doesn't seem to give hope to Nigerians, because Nigerians are hopeful that Nigerians will start refining its own oil. But we see law enforcement agents apprehending those refining, oil locally, and one would wonder, why haven't we just, brought them together and make them do it on a larger scale? Oh well, I don't know. Do you want to quickly respond?
You can actually see where the problem is. Refining technology simply is put crude oil in a big container and cook it. Put fire under that crude oil and cook it. And as you are cooking that crude oil, at the different levels of temperature, you will see petroleum products being gathered. And one of the first products that comes out is diesel. So what you see those boys doing in Niger Delta is pure refining. That's what refining is about. They put crude oil they have stolen into large containers, and they put fire under it and start cooking it. And then you see them connect a pipe where diesel is now dropping at the other side. That diesel that is dropping there is not adulterated diesel. It's the real diesel. If you use that diesel in any engine, it will work, because that is refining. Cook the crude oil and collect petroleum product. And the NNPC cannot do this simple thing. Why the international oil companies are doing the more difficult job of looking for oil. For you to look for oil and know that there's oil in the ground and it's in commercial quantities, it takes you billions of dollars with serious technology and expertise to be able to do that. Now you have produced the oil, NNPC can cook it for Nigerians. And the NNPC group managing director, who cannot cook crude oil to supply products plentifully to Nigeria, is the one who is the only importer. He is benefiting from a crisis that he has created. And you couldn't cook crude oil to give Nigerian products. You are the one who is now going as far as Singapore to go and import petroleum products and sell it to Nigerians at very expensive rates, because the NNPC is never an efficient organization. NNPC is the organization that has been paying salaries for years to people working in the refineries that are producing 0 barrels. Is that the kind of company that you want Nigerians to be suffering in their hands? And President Tinubu He's sitting there looking at the NNPC managing director. He comes on every time. He speaks grammar. We are not seeing anything.
All right, then. Thank you very much once again. Great. Now, let me come to you now. Great. Just yesterday, yesterday, the news broke that um, there was a vessel carrying stolen crude. It was caught in the waters in Delta State, stolen crude, and it was being escorted by a purported military boat. Now, not too long ago, I'm sure you remember that there was another vessel caught somewhere in Ondo, having 800 million barrels of crude, and that vessel was destroyed. And the security agents, the Tantita security team, they seem to have been working, apprehending oil thieves. And as Nick did say, drilling the oil, that process takes a lot. It takes a lot of expertise. All right, but we have been catching these people now. But government has not decided to produce oil. Government has not decided to supply Nigerians, the oil that it should have. But we see the price of petroleum products, PMS, going up every time. Do you think government is testing the threshold of the endurance threshold of Nigerians?
Okay. Let me start by painting this picture. We actually take some people too seriously in Nigeria. I'm telling you the honest truth. Over the years, I've discovered that there are people that should not even be given any form of attention, people who should not be taken serious. We do not only take them seriously, we go as far as bringing them to handle the affairs of Nigeria. It is not about individual, because the most unserious Nigerians are actually in politics. That is the unfortunate thing. The most unserious Nigerians are actually in politics, and even sometimes they don't even believe themselves, because they see Nigeria as a jungle where everybody comes in, whatever you get, you run. There is no time plan for Nigeria. There is no vision for Nigeria. There is no elite consensus about taking Nigeria forward. What just makes you a political elite is that you manage to find yourself in the same arena while the other unserious fellow comes in, and all of them, because of the visibility they have, we describe them as elite, but they have no serious plans. You find out, if you go and read about the men who made America, there are about 65 of them. When in the 17th century they decided to fight the British, to take over the Americas, to govern the Americas, they signed with their blood. And you will see that at the end of the agreement, they will sign my honor. It was their blood that they signed on it. Before the Alabama, the settlement of Alabama, and the cooperation agreement of 1871, because the human beings that were in those territories have a long-term vision about their country. So I want to start by letting Nigerians know that we are dealing with a group of people who are not serious about Nigeria. Well, as long as they're getting something off it, everybody can just go to sleep. They can allow foreigners, they allow criminals, they allow anybody to take their own portion as long as they are getting something out of it. In the struggle, I want to be this, I want to be that. It's all about getting just a bit of that pie. Nothing more. It's not about Nigeria. It's not about the future of Nigeria. They look at Nigeria as something that once it collapses, as long as I have enough, I run off to another country and I'll live my life. Even while we are waiting for it to collapse, I send my children off there and I enjoy the remaining one I have here. If anything happens, my children are okay. Nigeria can go to blazes. My brother, you cannot carry a ship into the territorial waters of Nigeria to come even as little as 2,000 barrels of and not be dictated by any country in the world. It is only in Nigeria you have Navy, you have Air Force, you have maritime security, you have police, even you have marine police, you have seamen, you even have even the military. After all of this, you even have militants guiding the pipeline, yet crude oil is being stolen in a large ship and being taken away. Come on, we are joking. These things are, it depends on who they have caught. If a lower rank, a man who is in the lower rank of the cadre of criminality in Nigeria, who is still not big enough to get some kind of protection, get some dirty, localized ship to come and move his own crude, and he gets caught, they use him to, to sample what they are doing. But it is a cartel. Look at what Nick just said. Every day I see Mele Kyari on TV. I'm wondering what Tinubu is doing in government. That is the guy behind the major problem of Nigeria. That guy is actually the problem of Nigeria. From 1999 to date, everybody that have governed that NNPC is actually the problem of Nigeria. Did you even notice that he was not remitting anything in the last administration? As soon as Tinubu came, he started remitting. I think that is just to paddy thing. Oh, we made 100-something billion. For many years, this guy did not bring anything to our coffers. A whole NNPC. They were not even the one drilling oil, because NNPC is into joint venture with some multinationals who drill this crude oil, who sell them, and then pay us money. This guy sits somewhere and spend all of them as expenditure, as cost of management. Doing nothing for Nigeria. I mean, if you don't probe NNPC, any government that comes to anybody that comes to power that does not probe an NNPC from 1999 today, I can never take them seriously. I can never take them seriously. Any government that does not probe an NPC subsidy regime, the dollar racketeer that happened in NPC, any Nigerian that takes him seriously or that government seriously, a fool, because these are the people behind Nigeria's problem. How can you say a ship laden with crude oil can be coming in here and going out and nobody sees it, and we are spending billions annually in security, to the extent that with all this army, Air Force, Navy, we are still even paying ordinary militants as private security to go and secure our waterways, and they will still not allow them to see everything. Let me say this. We have become a country of unserious people, and I think some people also, they are sycophants and praise singers who pamper these people who have undermined Nigeria, who have run the country aground, making these people incompetent characters look like they are doing anything for anybody. They keep bringing the value of the people down, keep wasting everybody's time, reducing the GDP of Nigeria, life expectancy of Nigeria, and taking people down to their grave without achieving their purpose in life. And some people are clapping for them. And not about anybody as individual. The culture of governance in Nigeria is nothing absolutely but in fact absolute criminal venture. Let me put it that way, because I don't know why we cannot refine kerosene, we cannot refine fuel, you cannot refine anything in Nigeria. There are over 120 byproducts from crude oil that many countries are maximizing as much as 50, 60, yet we are still selling crude. Yet we are not talking about the fact that crude oil is in Nigeria and we are buying refined crude, refined product at with our foreign currency, undermining the economy. Who even does that? Where are these people? Who educates themselves? Where they coming from?
All right, thank you.
This nonsense is too much.
I understand. Yes,
and this is not rocket science.
Of course, but unfortunately, this is what we are having to deal with. And well, thank you very much. Great email. Thank you also, Nick Agule. But I would like you gentlemen to stay with me for a little bit longer, as we will be going into the second topic for this morning. Now, for the second topic that we have on our table this morning, the governor's wife says the death of Dr. Vuarediaso was as a result of an arrow fired. Let's talk about this in a bit.